Hello.
Hey, Calvin.
How are you?
Good, good. How are you?
Good. I can't complain. I really appreciate your time here.
No, absolutely. It was a good day today to do it as well, so it's a pleasure.
Awesome, awesome. So, yeah, first I just want to say a really big thank you for hopping on pretty quick. And if you'd like to introduce yourself to the listeners about, a little bit about your journey and what you currently do right now.
No, for sure. So obviously, uh, my name is Anton Lauri. I'm from Finland. Been traveling fairly a lot with studies first in USA. Did my degree in Virginia uh, in athletic training, more focused. Then went to do my first ever internship at San Jose Earthquakes, more as athletic trainer, and then decided to a little bit shift towards strength and conditioning and coaching as I found it more be my passion. Went to study in Spain my master's in high performance strength and conditioning, and took my second internship or work contract with Sevilla first team for a full season there. Went next to work with Catapult on GPS stuff in Spain and France, working with the teams there. And then got a full-time position at the best team in Finland, Hoiko Helsinki, as a head of performance, head fitness coach. Was 3 seasons there, I think. And then 2021, got the opportunity to go to Colombia to work with a smaller club, but very interesting projects, developing a future big club and working with younger players in professional level. Did that for until March of this year, until I got the opportunity to come at LAFC, and obviously was an opportunity that I've been looking for a few years, also in LA as well, since the project started here, and obviously didn't think too much to get the opportunity to come. So now it's, I think, my third week more or less here, and little by little getting used to everything, but I think everything has gone very well. Very nice people here, and of course helped with the adaptations, the players. Obviously we have a lot of Latin American players, so the fact that being in Colombia has also helped to connect quickly, and yeah, very happy. But also a lot of work, and excited to see what's in the future ahead. So I think
that's awesome. That's awesome. So congratulations. It's awesome to see you here now in LA. So one of my first questions for you that I'm interested to hear, throughout your journey as a coach, what has been some of the biggest separations between fitness and strength and conditioning through players as the levels fluctuate? What would you say are the top 3 things you've noticed between some of the best players with fitness and conditioning and strength, and the other ones that kind of more are just in the middle of the pack?
Well, it's I think there is a lot of different. It's difficult to say in general. I think you have players that have massive talent, technically, tactically, and they can compensate a lot of physical aspects with that. Then you have players that don't necessarily have that same talent, so then they compensate with physicality. So I think you have a wide spectrum of players. I think the key, obviously, for any successful player to play at high level is not to have too many injuries. I think that's the first one. So they are either very efficient movers, they're very good at doing their things. I think that's the key. You are not just being fast, but you are able to read the situations well, so you can use your speed, what's the need in each situation. Same with strength, so it's not just how strong you are in the gym, but how well you use your body and tools, how you position yourself depending on what's the need in each situation. And I think those are the major things that I have found, that how the players can read the situations and not just using the skill in closed setting, but more what is needed in each situation of the game. So just having the ability to sprint fast doesn't make you necessarily to understand the situation and do the sprints when it's needed. And then you have a lot of talented players, especially that I've seen in Colombia, which we were working a lot of young talents, a little bit like, let's say, raw talents, that players have similar or even better qualities that a lot of top players, but then the way they use those qualities within the game setting is not the same intelligence. So they may waste a lot of energy, let's say, doing let's say 1v1 dribble in a situation where one touch pass could be much more progressive for the game, and you save energy for the moments when you actually have to do those. So I think those are the things I have found.
That's very interesting. So a big connection between the thinking part of the game as well as the physical aspects as well, is something that I've always noticed to be very important as well, how players read the game and, like you said, understand every scenario in which to use their strengths. So that's awesome. So one of my next questions is actually, it'll be pretty relatable to now, since you've just joined LAFC. So how do you come in as a new coach with a new club and start to, build an environment that players want to get behind, that are excited to do the work, that want to do the work? How do you get them to kind of flip that switch on and motivate them? Because it can't always be easy.
Well, I think you have to, first of all, you can do different ways. The first impression in anything, not just in coaching, is important. So you show yourself as a professional, you show you are interested on them. I think that's the main key. They feel that you want to improve them, so that's always helps with the communication. I think that's the first key. I think the second one is you try to understand the player, you try to communicate, you try to talk. You try to educate what are your things and why we do things. I find that's the most important. And how I usually coach is I try to explain, which is not always easy, but try to explain them why we do something in relation to their sport. So especially in football, I find that the culture of strength and conditioning is sometimes a little bit struggling with the players, because the players may not necessarily feel that they don't know how does this, what I'm doing here, help me on the pitch. So I think with my playing background, with my UFA coaching license, thinking the game from coaching perspective as well, helped me to give that, let's say, explanation relation to the field work, to the gym, and why we do certain things and what that could help them in the pitch. And I find that's the things that I find easier when I transition, for example, here. So try to work as individualized as possible without obviously forgetting what's the collective needs. It's not possible to work in a team environment with each individual fully individualized, but certain switches and certain things you can always work with each player. And I think those are the things I've been trying to do, and I find that they have worked fairly well here also as well.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I actually just kind of transitioned into my coaching, and I'm doing it full time, lucky enough. And one thing I've learned is people don't really care what you have to say unless you show that you care about them. And so that was something big that I've learned. So that's awesome. That's awesome. So moving on, I would love to learn a little bit more and understand a little bit more when players are kind of coming in for preseason, and right now it's the start-ish of the season. What are some of the key focuses for players that are coming in? What deems them fit? What kind of exercise are you doing in preseason, and all of that stuff?
Well, it obviously depends. I think you have to consider the two things. So how long has been the off season? How short is the preseason, or how long? So in Finland, the preseason technically lasts 3 months, because we start the full season or we play cup games or something in the winter, but the main focus is in the league season starts. So 3 months is a very long period. So you have much more time to build the fitness level, much more or less, let's say your approach can be much less riskier in terms of pushing the players in the early phase. So to build that fitness toward the summer, while in Colombia it was 3 weeks. So then you have to take much more aggressive approach, because you just have to really push the guys to be sufficient level, obviously without risking too much injuries, that we are ready. So it's very different approach. And I think obviously I haven't been here in the preseason because I jumped in now in the season. But I think the preseason normally here is kind of between those two, a little bit more. Let's say many European teams that they have the 6-week preseason. So then it's kind of between there. So you start maybe the first week a little bit, of course, testing the players, seeing where we at, and then building with the coaching staff what we need tactically to be prepared for the first game, what we need from physical aspects, and then you start building those. So So it's not really one size fits all. So you have to always look different approaches. In Colombia, we made a risky, let's say, plan that we didn't focus on the first game. So we focused on the third game. So that kind of built us 2 weeks more. Obviously, when the season is very short, you have to understand that we're risking the first 2 games to be a little fatigued. But then in the longer term, when you reach the playoffs, if you reach, then it can be a very positive thing. So you have more built time on those conditional aspects. So I usually, in terms of strength perspective, like to build a little bit more strength endurance type of thing, circuit strength the first couple of weeks, get the muscles and joints used to strength training exercises, not pushing too much eccentric stuff in the first 2 weeks to kill the guys, and then there switch toward maximum strength, and once the season gets closer, depending in Finland or the most important games, you switch a little bit more speed related stuff to it. But obviously every team is different, every coach is different. You have to find a way which works best for each team and each group of players. It's very different to work with young players than players that have variety of age and different injury history. So trying to take those into account. So that's the thing. Obviously, from terms of speed perspective, you want to build a high speed tolerance. From conditional perspective, you may integrate to the football as much as possible, but then if you need to do additional running, maybe from longer intervals towards shorter intervals and speed endurance and so on. Obviously, the system when you play in USA, Colombia, we have playoffs. It gives a little bit different approach because your most important games are end of the season. While in Finland, when it's full season, there is no most important points. You need to win from the start and you need to win the end. So it always changes a little bit the focus. Obviously, there may be moments that you are more focused on results. So let's say if there is a cup final coming in, so maybe we change the focus then a little bit more to be fresh in that game. From strength perspective, working on reactive and speed related lifting a little bit more and drop down the volume in certain things, or however is the seasonal structure and the most important moments of the season. But in general, a lot of things can affect, so it's not just one size fits all.
Awesome. So that's very interesting to hear. So another kind of question I have to tie into this quickly is, so I was a goalkeeper when I played, and so our training was always different in terms of obviously footballing side of things and as well as the gym side of things. When you're working with goalkeepers at LAFC or wherever you are, is their fitness program tailored differently because of the aspects, different aspects of that position, or do you just require them to have the same, fitness standards as a field player, and you just add on different scenarios and different in training?
Well, obviously it should be different, at least. Obviously, we understand depending on level that how much personnel you have at the club, whether you have full-time coaching, a goalkeeper coach. If you don't, then it's very difficult, obviously, to have the time to do everything. But obviously, the goalkeeper is much more speed related, explosive. So you should really focus on those aspects and not to put too much endurance in general terms. Obviously, in terms of lifting, your movements, you still need to do shorter sprints, let's say 20-meter sprints to be fast when you need to leave the goal for a long pass behind the line. But the key still would be jumping related short movements and these kind of things. So also in the gym work, you may be working a little bit more vertical, while in field players, the more importance is in decels and horizontal movements, let's say, especially in the wide players that may not jump that much for headers. So maybe you work more horizontal, lateral type of movements. In emphasis, of course, both has to be included, or all these aspects. I think that's the key is also working with the goalkeeper coach, because usually when the field player, they have the most hardest days, that can be the easiest days for the goalkeeper. So let's say 11 game, the goalkeeper may not do that much from physical side, while the players, that may be the hardest session of the week. So how do you manage that? Because the periodization from strength standpoint can be totally different. So working really close with the goalkeeper coach, it's obviously important to find a way how they prioritize the week, and then try to make a plan together in terms of how much jumps they may do on the field and how much you need to program those in the gym setting or other similar stuff. So I think it's something more a little bit difficult and different from the field players, but it's important to have the goalkeepers do different kind of stuff, obviously.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I'm pretty interested. I actually saw you made a post about this a while ago, something that I've always been interested in and I'm actually studying right now, but neurosciences and neuroathletic training. When it's brought to football, do you guys incorporate any of that in your trainings, or is it still kind of new? Something that I've just kind of generally been interested in, tying the brain to the performance aspect of football. I would love to hear if you have a little bit more to speak on that, if you guys add that in and whatnot.
Well, obviously I studied a little bit more when I was doing athletic training as well. Obviously when I went to fitness coaching and doing UEFA coaching licenses, a little bit have to change the priorities. I'm still very interested on it. I wouldn't say I'm expert, so maybe not feel comfortable to explain other things, but I think I find it very interesting and definitely something that will grow in future. Obviously, now that I'm doing rehab, I may have a little bit more opportunity to incorporate certain type of stuff from vision standpoint or movement perspective, moving and dissociating certain things with that. But when you're working with the team, I think it's not that easy to integrate, especially because it's really difficult stuff, a lot of things. So I think it's easier when you work with one-on-one. And that those are one things that I really want to, now that I'm doing the rehab, to start incorporating. So working with my close colleague from Germany, understanding how he uses it in rehab and try to get ideas and so on. I think it's very interesting stuff. But yeah, I wouldn't feel yet comfortable enough to talk too much about it, but something definitely I'm again trying to study more and get used to. So.
Awesome. That's awesome. So finishing up here, because I don't want to take all of your free time up. So you talked a little bit about rehab and recovery. I know that obviously it's important to have rest and recovery because that's actually when your body grows. But I've noticed, especially in coaching at the younger levels, there's so much going on nowadays. Everyone's always playing, and it's almost like if you take a little bit of time to recover or rest, you're being like weak or not strong enough. So I would love to hear a little bit more about the importance of the rest on the body and throughout sessions and throughout the season.
Well, I would say in the younger age groups, I think the world has changed in a way that the kids don't anymore play that much on free time. They're on iPhones and things. So I wouldn't say in the youth level you have to restrict how much they do on free time. I think more, as much as possible on free time, they should do things. I think what we need to focus is not necessarily organize that much the youth activities, because I think that the kids need to have their own time and be creative and train things and all this kind of, if they're possible. I think it's important. I think it's also important from, let's say, not generally talking that you have to be multi-sport athlete, but having multiple different kind of stimulus and movements and things. So let the kids play in the parks and do all kind of tag games or whatever that gives them different kind of movement stimulus and not just organizing things. I think it's important. I think we should give them opportunities, but not necessarily guide them to all the time do certain things. So in the youth level, I think it's more related to the team environment that we should plan them, have days off that they can actually use their imagination and go help or play themselves with the yard or kick with friends or whatever. I think in the older, once you gain to the professional level and there, obviously rest, not just from physical standpoint, but from mental standpoint with a lot of games is important. I think you cannot just be fully, let's say, I don't know if motivation is the correct word, but like same passion for every game and that drive for each game. If you have so many games, it's very difficult. So I think it's more important from that perspective to have those days that you can shut the football bubble out a little bit and do other things also. I think it's important. But from physical standpoint, I think rest days it doesn't just mean you lay on the couch and don't do anything. You still should do something, like walking, and obviously more professionally you go, you learn your body, whether it's yoga and meditative stuff, maybe it's swimming and do certain things. I think everyone finds their way, but obviously the importance of recovery, further you go, is important. But of course, when you talk about, let's say, that shift between the youth and the professional level, you have the moments when kids are growing with height, they are doing school things, so you have to take a lot of stress into account from that perspective as well. So I think it's interesting topic, an important topic to manage how much we let's say demand from the players, from, let's say, team perspective, how much we give them free time and ability to recover from certain guided exercise more than just day off and so on. So I think that's my approach for it.
All right, so just to wrap it up here with the last question, because like I said, I really appreciate your time. Something that I'm curious to hear about quickly, because I work with a lot of college athletes as well, and I get this question a lot. So during my playing career, I never drank, I never smoked or anything. How detrimental can alcohol be to somebody's career while they're playing it, while they're on it? Is it a little, not a lot, depending on the amounts? What's your opinion on that sort of topic?
Well, I don't think it's that straightforward. If I remember correctly, we had a class in the master's degree where we had a teacher talking about using, let's say, beer as a recovery. So if I remember correctly, we have different kind of genetics. So some people are able to burn alcohol faster than the other ones. I know in Germany there is still a culture that sometimes after the game you may take one beer. So obviously, in general terms, I think less alcohol the better. Obviously, it affects your sleep, it affects your recovery in general. So you should try to stay away from it. But having a glass of wine or one beer once in a while, definitely. I think it's also the fact, as we're speaking, that it's mental as well, the recovery. So if it sometimes helps you to relax mentally, it may be beneficial also from the complete standpoint, not just. But obviously, healthy habits, staying away from regular sugars and alcohol as well. Try to stay as healthy as possible is a big thing and big impact on your recovery and in long term as well for your performance.
All right, awesome. So that was it. Like I said, a lot of times, just want to say I really appreciate your time for hopping on. I know you're a busy man, so it really means a lot. So thank you for hopping on.
No, for sure, pleasure, and hopefully those answers were fine, and people are happy to listen to those and so on. So big pleasure to be, and as well, hopefully you'll have a great day, and we'll talk later.
Yes, definitely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.